Good morning, one and all. Gathered here, I welcome dignitaries on the dais, faculty members, and students for today's special lecture series, topic Fundamentals of Research Methodology. It is a great privilege to introduce today's resource person, my beloved teacher, guide, and my source of inspiration, Madam Dr. Navita Timmaya, Associate Professor, Department of Studies in Economics and Cooperation, University of Mysore. It is not enough even a day to say about a madam's achievement in the academic field. Still, I try to brief it, madam. Madam specialized in quantitative methods of economics, theoretical and applied econometrics, research methodology, and microeconomics. Madam has 18 years of teaching experience in University of Mysore, Administrative Training Institute, Government of Karnataka, Vidyavardhaka First Grade College, Maharaja's College, Mysore. Madam is also a visiting faculty to the School of Justice and Bahadur Institute of Management, University of Mysore. Madam has received gold medals and a scholarship while doing her master's as well as undergraduation. Madam nearly published more than 60 articles, research papers in international and national journals. Madam successfully guided 16 PhD students, out of that 11 has been awarded and still 5 students are pursuing PhD. Madam completed 2 projects under UGC UPE. The title is Crime and Social Development, District Planning Committee and Rural Development, and one action research project on empowerment of women through microfinancing in self-help groups funded by ATI, Mysore. Madam even guided more than 18 minor, major and government projects. Madam is a resource person for more than 100 various programs to the Administrative Training Institute, Karnataka Police Academy, State Institute of Urban Development, State Institute of Rural Development, Indian Society for Training and Development, etc. Madam has been a course coordinator, director and organizer and core committee members and BOS, BOE members in national and national bodies. Words and days is not enough to say about madam's achievement. So here today we are very fortunate to have you, madam, for today's special lecture series. Thank you. Ma'am, you can take over now. Thank you.
analytical techniques, everything. Okay, that is research methodology. And methods are just how we are going to take up the research work. Okay, so let us keep that in our mind. How methodology is very broad when compared to research methods. Research methods are very narrow. We just speak on certain methods, whereas methodology is very vast. It will cover entire research process. It includes research design, sampling techniques, sample size determination, data analysis, hypothesis testing, how to draw inferences, how to write the conclusions, how to write the whole report. Everything is incorporated in methodology, right? So you can imagine when I have to talk on fundamentals of research methodology, it will be very vast. I am trying to just focus on certain important fundamental aspects, right? Covering everything in one section would be very difficult, right? Actually impossible task. You take it up as a course, whether in your graduation or post-graduation. You study it as a research methodology course only, right? Before you take up your project work and all. So let us first try to understand what research is about. So some of you might already have some knowledge about what is research. So it is systematic, controlled, empirical and critical investigation of propositions about the presumed relations among natural phenomena. So it is systematic. Once we talk about research, it has to be very systematic and organized, and it has to be an purposeful inquiry. Right? Without anything in abstract, I cannot go about searching for something. Right? You should have a purpose. You should have a focus. So we call it as consider research as a purposeful inquiry. With some purpose, with some objective, you try and go on searching something along with facts in a systematic way. So what is systematic? You go step by step, systematically, right? You cannot just make a statement randomly and say that that is your research output or that is your research finding. Nobody will accept it, right? If I just make a statement about economy just based on my thought process, right, without any base, without any support, will anybody accept that statement? No. They will just say she is crazy, just making some statement. So it would not be considered as a research statement or a research finding. So it is systematic, controlled, empirical. Empirical in the sense it is based on data. It is based on practical observations. You have support of the data. Okay, that is empirical. Okay, and critical investigation. Why critical? Because it has to be objective. Objectivity is very important in research. So what is objectivity? Being objective. What is objective? Trying to look at things as they are. Right? You just try to analyze certain phenomena as it is happening. No bias, no prejudice, no personal judgments. Right? So I am just looking at things as they are. So researcher has to be highly objective. So investigation of propositions about the presumed relations. So what are those propositions? That is your objectives or the purpose for your inquiry or purpose of your research. So you have made certain proposition about let us say certain variables, how economy works, or what is the relationship between investment and profits in a business enterprise, things like that. Okay, so those are the propositions, and you might have presumed certain relationships among the variables and you want to check them or you want to examine them. That will be your inquiry, that will be your research work. Okay, so when we talk about natural phenomena or about human society, we call it as social science research, where we are dealing with human beings, human society. That aspect we call it as social science research. So So the manipulation of generalization to extend, correct or verify the existing knowledge. So that is as per Encyclopedia of Social Sciences. Research is defined as manipulation of generalization to extend, correct or verify the existing knowledge. So you want to extend the knowledge, correct the knowledge, you assess, examine and make correct statements. So there might be some superficial beliefs and all, right? How do we know the truths? Because of research, right? Some activity goes on, some research activity, and then you will say it's not like that, right? So many times we just believe superstitiously, so many aspects in society, right, every day. So it's not superstition, things are working like this. How do I correct it? Correct the existing knowledge based on the research. So extension of knowledge. What is research? Addition to the stock of knowledge. So there must be continuous addition to the existing stock of knowledge. So that cannot be stagnant. Knowledge stock cannot be constant or stagnant. Right? It keeps on growing. 10 years, your curricula was different. What you are studying in your master's course or graduation course. Now it is different. Why? Because research is adding so many things to your discipline. Right? So it is an extension of the knowledge, existing knowledge or additions to the stock of the knowledge. Then scientific research consists of obtaining information through empirical observation. So you are observing what is happening practically, empirically, right? That can be used for systematic development of logically related propositions, attempting to establish causal relations among variables. So you are trying to establish the causal relation. What is this causal relation? Cause and effect relationship. So if investment is the cause, what is the effect? Profits, right? Or the employment created, the salaries that are given to the employees. All these are effect, right? With one cause, one enterprise being set up, there is a lot of other effect variables. So you want to find out the relationship, that cause and effect relationship. So what is the relationship between national income growth and poverty levels in an economy, right? As and when national income increases, we believe that poverty levels in the country decreases, right? Sometimes it might increase also. So again, that is a researchable issue, inequality issues and all. So everything we try to examine, you want to establish the causal relationships. So as I told you, research has to be scientific, right, and systematic. What do we mean by the scientific research? When we say scientific research, does it apply only to science? Life sciences, biological sciences, physical sciences and all? No, it applies to social sciences also. Any research that is happening anywhere in any field, whether it is related to human society or life sciences or physical sciences, it has to be scientific in approach. Okay, so it has to be systematic. It refers, science is what? Basically it is systematic and organized knowledge which makes use of scientific method to acquire knowledge in a particular field of inquiry. So science itself is a systematic and organized body of knowledge, right? And what is this scientific method? Systematic approach to the research. So what is scientific research? It is not research that is applied to just science, right? It is about the method. So any research for that matter, whether in social sciences or any sciences, it has to be scientific in approach. So when we say scientific research, what are those features? So it is the systematic collection of data or facts and their theoretical treatment through proper observation, experimentation and interpretation. So you are doing everything systematically. Nothing, there is no ambiguity in your research process, right? Everything is systematic. Only then you call it as scientific research. It has to be very systematic, step-by-step approach, logical, rational, everything. There are certain features that comes with scientific research. We will deal with that later. So that systematic approach, any research, it has to be scientific. So once if we think about taking up a research activity, first thing that should come to our mind is it has to be systematic, right? How do I organize my research work? How do I identify the research problem? What will be the purpose on which I am taking my research work? Yeah, which is what objectives am I working on my research on, right? So it goes systematically, step by step, right? It is not just a random process. Whether it is a short-term research project or your semester course-ending research projects, or might be MPhil dissertations or doctoral dissertation, the steps are same. It is systematic. Okay. Scientific method attempts to achieve a systematic interrelation of facts by experimentation, observation, and logical arguments from accepted postulates, and a combination of these three in varying proportions. So you observe, you experiment, and you interrelate the variables, and in each research project all these three will be in different proportions. So as I told you, when we say it is scientific method or scientific research, we look at certain aspects, let us call it as characteristic features of scientific research. So if it is scientific, what are the features that we look into that? Right? Once if there is a research activity happening, right? So first thing is it relies on empirical evidence. So what is empirical? I already mentioned it is based on factual data, practical observations. Okay. Then it utilizes relevant concepts. So you use relevant concepts and with proper definitions. So for example, if I am taking up a research on poverty, right? I will define what poverty is, and I will properly understand what that concept of poverty appears in my research, in what context, in what definition of poverty, which concept of poverty I am using in my research activity. So there is no ambiguity, I am using the properly relevant concept. Same way, if you are talking or examining on profits of a business enterprise, you want to define how profits are measured, what concept of profits you are using, whether it is real profits or accounting profits, or right. So I am using the relevant concepts. It has to be based on ethical neutrality. So what is this ethical neutrality? My values, my understanding of values, or whatever value systems I have should not influence my research. So ethically it has to be neutral. There must be no bias, right? Based on my opinion, my biases, my prejudice, I cannot influence my research work. It might be my research work, but it has to be objective and ethically neutral. Value systems and all should not influence the research activity, right? And that is what is objectivity also. Trying to look at things as they are. No other influences. You are just observing what is happening. You are just collecting the data, what is there. No other prejudices or biases should influence the research activity. So it is committed only to objective considerations. Then ethical neutrality, which I already discussed. Then it results into probabilistic predictions. So based on my analysis and all, I forecast and I make predictions, right? Predictions mean not just like some, not professing or something just like that, right? Based on the data, based on what my research finding says, based on that I am making probabilistic predictions, not predictions per se. Not just giving some statements and all, based on the research findings. Then the methodology is made known. So why methodology is very, very important? Once you are giving your research report, whether it is, as I told you, a research article in a journal or a MPhil dissertation or a doctoral dissertation, anything, the methodology must be very, very clear. There must be no ambiguity. You should clearly say where the data sources were, where did you collect the data, how did you collect the data, on what methods you collected the data, what was the sample size, where was your study population located, or what was the universe of your study, right? Everything you make it clear. So research methodology should be made known. So it carries a huge weightage for your whole research process, the methodology. Then it aims at formulating specific theories. So based on the findings or inferences or the conclusions that you have drawn based on your research, you might develop new theories also, right? If you have taken up some new interesting relationship between the variables and all, who knows, you might be developing a new theory also, right? Which you can publish, right? And don't know where it ends, right? So that is the importance of a novel research work. So we also say that research work has to be novel. What is novel? The novels that you read, it has to be new. There must be something new in your research work. So something which is already done, same thing you are eating, the same dishes you are again heating them up and giving people to eat it again, right? There is nothing new. So when you are taking up a research activity, see that there is something novel about your research work. There has to be something new. So briefly, characteristics of research. Let us not throw much time on this. So research is directed towards the solution of a problem. So when we talk about applied research, right? So what is this applied research about? One of the research methods. Fundamental research is research for the sake of knowledge itself. Like what Galileo did, what Newton did, right? What did Galileo do? He kept observing the movement of stars, right? Movement of moon every night, through day and night, through his through a window. He kept observing, right? With that observation, what did he come out with? He told that sun is at the center and earth is revolving around the sun. And till that time, till Galileo made that statement, what did everyone think? They thought that earth is flat, and if someone moves to end of the earth, they will fall down and die because it is flat, right? And end. Earth is at the center and sun is revolving around the earth. That is what everyone believed. Even biblical statement said that also. So what reward did he receive, Galileo, for that? Yes, he was persecuted, right? He died in the prison because nobody knew the truth. Only later, right? Recently, I think they corrected that process and all about his persecution and all. Because people did not know that scientific, because of that scientific approach. So why did he observe? For the sake of knowledge, for the sake of understanding, right? And again, Newton's laws of gravitation. What happened to Newton? Did he work on identifying the laws of gravitation and all? No, he was just relaxing in a park below the apple tree. Apple fell down, right? And suddenly his intuition, curiosity, something arose in his mind. What did he think? Why apple is falling down only? Why it is not going up? Right? That's where the gravitation laws were developed, right? So out of curiosity, intuition, inquisitiveness. So each one of us might be Newton, we don't know. Something might flash. So we can explore on that. That is fundamental, okay? And as opposed to fundamental research is applied research. So what is this applied research? We want to find a solution to the existing problem. So you focus on a problem and you want to find out solutions for that. So we talk so much about poverty, right? This 2022-23 budget was presented and everyone were criticizing there is nothing about poverty, no allocations directly for poverty and all. Why? Because you are worried about it. Because people are in poor condition, there is state of hunger, malnutrition, basic amenities are also not there, so you must try to uplift them. So it is a social evil, conditions of poverty, right? So you want to work on it, you want to find solution, how to bring people, bring them above the poverty line. So there is below the poverty line and above the poverty line. So from below the poverty line, how do I bring them to above the poverty line? What are the inputs needed? What are the strategies that can be followed? So I want solutions for those problems, right? Then there is child marriage, domestic violence, right? When we talk about gender and all, and business enterprise. Why does enterprise become sick enterprise? How do I rejuvenate it? What are the inputs that are needed? So you take up a research on that and you try to find out the solutions. So research is based upon observable experience or empirical evidence, which we already focused on. It should be based on factual data. The research demands accurate observation and description. So as I told you, just by making some statement, it cannot be accepted as a research finding or a conclusion. It must be based on proper description and accurate observations or experimentations, whatever, or the support of data, or how you have analyzed the data, what were the findings, how did you interpret them, everything. So it involves gathering new data from primary sources, using existing data for a new purpose. So we talk about data sources, right, when we talk about research methodology, or when you write about methodology in your research project. First thing you will mention is whether your research is based on secondary data or the primary data. So secondary data is which is already published and which is already available. Primary data which the researcher himself is going and collecting in the field. You are going and directly collecting the data from the respondents or from the people. Respondents are the people who are giving you the information. So when you are collecting such data, how you are recognizing the respondents, how many respondents do you need, everything comes under research methodology, right? And from where you are collecting, what is the reason you are collecting the data from that place, right? Which area, scope of your study, where you are taking up the research, what is the study population, what is the sample framework, and from that sample framework, how many sample units you are picking, how you have decided on the numbers, right? Everything is there in the methodology. Then it requires expertise, research skills are needed. How do you gain those research skills? The curriculum might have research methodology courses, the special lecture series organized by your faculty. They all help you in gaining these research skills. So you should have expertise and skills. Why? Because research is scientific. Randomly or ambiguously we cannot take up some research activity. So we need the necessary skills and knowledge and expertise. So it has to be objective and logical, as we had already discussed under scientific method, and it involves the quest for answer to unsolved problems. So there are so many questions which are not answered. So you want to answer those problems through your research work, right? For example, usually I discuss with my students, okay, the problem of absenteeism among students. So it's a big question mark, I want to answer that. So what are the reasons? Why do they get absent? Why they are not regular? What are the issues? Right? So there might be many issues. There might be problem of travel, access to transportation, or some problem in the hostel, or if you are coming from home, some problems at home. So many issues can be there, right? I want to answer why there is problem of absenteeism among students. Doesn't mean that my students are regularly absent, just giving an example, right? Do you get absent? No, so not an issue, right? Otherwise, Dr. Ashwini would take up a research on that, right? So it is a patient and unhurried activity. So we should have lot of patience. You should plan it. So given the time and your resources, your budget, your time. For example, your semester and course and project work, right? You will have one semester. So you should plan. What must be the scope of my research within one semester? How much, what is it that I can do justice on? What topic I can take up, right? What can be the small sample size that I can work on, right? Sometimes these are the constraints that are faced by the researchers. We cannot just go with numbers, what the population says and all. There is constraint for the researcher, right? Then it must be recorded and reported. So each and every activity that you take up in your research must be carefully recorded. Why? Because it is systematic. Whatever you are doing, try to record it at every stage. It adds to your report. When you are writing your report or the whole draft in the end when you are writing everything, that comes to your help. Whatever you have recorded carefully at every stage of your research. So social science research, I already told you, it deals whenever we are dealing with society, human life, we call it as social science research. About society we are dealing. So if you are talking about a business enterprise or an economy or the political activity of people, anthropological development, right? Everything comes under social science research, right? Even business enterprise, who runs the business enterprise? It's people, it's in a society, right? For the development of the society or for personal development also. So it comes under social science research. So it is research involving theories and concepts, again scientific methods which can enhance our understanding of the social processes and problems encountered by individuals and groups in society or by the whole society itself. Best example is the recent COVID-19 pandemic. Right? The whole world, not just one group or one section or one area. The whole, that's why we called it as pandemic, right? Everyone were affected across the globe. So you want to understand those problems or try to analyze the social phenomena. You want to understand why a business enterprise is sick, why it is a failure, or why it is a success also for that matter, right? Everything comes under social science research. So it is conducted by sociologists who are typically studying about the societal patterns, psychologists trying to understand human behavior, why nowadays we have behavioral economics also. Has anybody read something about it? Economic students. Right? So there are Nobel Prizes in economics awarded to behavioral economics. So how the behavior induces, instead of understanding economic behavior, now a new discipline has come up recently. We call it as behavioral economics, right? We want to understand how the attitude, motivations, behavior is influencing the economic activity, or whether there is a pattern and things like that. Okay, and it is not just common sense. As I told you, not just some statement based on my common sense or my thought process or anything. It must be based on facts, right? So whether there was theory or not, any statement, any research finding should be based on facts. So theory might come up later, or there might be some theory you want to test on, right? So that is irrelevant, but facts have to be there. So using personal life experience or perpetuating media myths, or based on the observations or the data that you have collected from the primary field survey and things like that. So what are the uses? So we discovery of facts and their interpretation. You discover the facts and try to interpret them. Diagnosis of problems and their analysis. Or try to diagnose the problems and try to find solutions to those problems. Systematization of knowledge. You want to systematically establish the knowledge. Control over social phenomena. So once you understand that causal effect, what is the cause and what is the effect happening, you can control the social phenomena also, right? In a very subtle way. Then prediction. So what happens if population is growing at this rate? What will be the population of India in 2040, 2050? Right? We are talking about demographic advantage. In few years, we will overcome China in demographic advantage. What is this demographic advantage? Huge numbers of population. Working youth population, not just the population. So India is one of the countries which is having highest numbers of youth population in the working age. So you are all part of that demographic advantage. So all of you must be get enough skills that you must be productively placed in the economy, contributing with some productive activity. So in this process of education, you should gather enough skills, see that you are employable, or see that you provide employment to many people. Right? You can start some business activity, giving jobs to other people also, even entrepreneurial skills and all. So development planning, how to develop the economy, how I have to plan for 5 years or long-term planning. For example, this year's budget, what did Financial Minister make a statement? Right? It is a foundation and blueprint for 25 years. What are those 25 years? Amrit Kal. Right? India at 75, from India at 75 to India at 100. So 2022, from 1947, India is at 75 now. So this budget is the blueprint for this 25 years process. What must be India at 100? So how did they do that? With the help of development planning, based on the data, seeing how economy works with such infrastructure projects, with such capital expenditure and all. Then obviously we cannot forget the social welfare. Societal welfare is always there. So how to promote the welfare of the people with all the activities, how to bring them above the poverty levels, how to see that people are not dying without hunger, how to improve the nutritional status of the people, nutritional status of kids, how to bring in gender balance, gender development, right? Everything is a focus, and everything comes from what? Everything is outcome of the social science research. So objectives, which is already there. So what is the criteria of a good research? So if the research has to be good, qualitative, appreciable, if everyone has to accept it. Most thing is the purpose has to be clearly defined. Your research purpose, that's why I told it is a purposeful inquiry. It is a purposeful investigation. And investigation, it is a search for facts with a purpose. You are searching for facts with a purpose. So first thing is the purpose has to be clearly defined. What is the purpose for your research work? Then research process has to be detailed. So that is, research process is what? Methodology. The whole methodology has to be detailed. What is the research design? What is the sampling design? What is the study area? What is the sample size? Everything has to be detailed. And research design should be thoroughly planned. So once you jump into your actual research, once your research problem is formulated and all, once you jump into that research activity, you should have proper research design in your hands. And high ethical standards must be applied. There must be ethical neutrality. Ethical standards in the sense, no biases, no prejudices of researchers' value system, moral values. If I am brought up on such and such value systems. Those value systems should not influence my research objectives or my research findings. Okay, that is the thing. Then adequate analysis for decision makers needs. So based on your research output, certain decisions can be made. So you should give adequate analysis so that a decision maker can take proper decisions. Then findings must be presented unambiguously. There must be no ambiguity at all. On one side it is positive and one side it is negative on the same issues. It is ambiguity. You must be very accurate and clear. The finding has to be very precise. It must be pakka, no doubts. Okay, that must be our research findings. Then conclusions must be justified. On what basis we have made our statements? On what basis I have made that finding? It must be justified. It must be rational based on the results of my data analysis. So in what way I have analyzed the data, what results I have got, based on that I have drawn these inferences. So it has to be properly recorded, and the whole research process or the whole research report will reflect the experience of the researcher. So even if we don't have much experience, we can gain enough knowledge and skills so that it is proper. Then qualities of good research. It has to be systematic. From the starting sentence was that only. Any research activity has to be systematic. It has to go one process after another has to be followed systematically. Then it has to be logical. So that logical sequencing has to be there. So why you have made that statement? Why do I say that students are getting absent? Because of transportation problem. So if I make this statement, data must be supportive for me, right? So there are inadequate public transportation availability to university campus, and that's why students are missing the classes, right? I will collect the data, the number of buses flying, and have the data of attendance of the students, and then I will make this statement, right? So it has to be logical. No abstract statements, no random statements can appear as a research finding. To what extent in research we say that each sentence that we write in our report must have a basis. That must have a basis, okay? Then it is to be empirical, based on factual data, replicable. So you have to record, properly mention your methodology, so that if somebody wants to take up the same research, they would, with same data, they must arrive at the same results. It must be replicable, verifiable. Okay, so if it is not replicable or verifiable, what does it look? What it indicates that might be the research process taken up by that researcher is not proper. They have documented something. When I tried to take up same research with same data set and same methodology, I did not get that results. Right? So it must be very verifiable, replicable. Then it has to be creative, novelty, something new, right? Not imitative research. So usually what happens in research activity, what do we see? Somebody has compared public and private health expenditure in Mandya district. I will take up the same research in Mysore district, right? That kind of research is what? Imitative. It is not creative or novel. So same topic might be, you can add your own interpretation, your own different type of analysis. Only then can you take up such research. Otherwise it will be imitative. So it has to be novel and creative, and there must be use of multiple research methods, right? So nowadays we talk about mixed research methods, right? You use both qualitative data and quantitative data. So whenever we are dealing with society, whenever you are collecting primary data from people, you have qualitative data in hand. So you use qualitative research methods along with quantitative methods. So you have recorded data for over years and all, or cross-sectional, you try to use that data. So you use multiple methods based on what? Based on your research objectives. You try to fulfill your research objectives and then try to use the relevant methods. And all this must be recorded where? In your methodology part. Okay. So research, as I told you, Galileo and Newton, they try to explore, they try to gain more knowledge, right? They try to describe certain phenomena, what is happening. You want to give a description of what is it and all. Then you take up research. You want to diagnose, right? Why people are in that vicious circle of poverty? I want to diagnose. I want to find out, right? Finding out the cause and effect. Cause, consequences, and if possible I try to get the solutions. And then hypothesis. So what is hypothesis? It is a tentative statement, right? You have some proposition on the interrelationship between variables. So you want to check that. I will say that when national income is increasing, the poverty levels are decreasing, right? That's a proposition. So I will check that with the factual data. I will take national income over years and the poverty data, and I will try to check that hypothesis. So that is called as hypothesis testing. One of the important aspect of methodology is data analysis. So how do you take up data analysis? There are two methods, okay, based on whether we are using descriptive statistics or inferential statistics, okay. So descriptive statistics is what? I will take the data and I will calculate average, standard deviation, variance, correlation coefficient, things like this, okay. And I will state, okay, the average score of the students in St. Philomena's postgraduate students. What is the average CGPA that you are scoring, okay. So what I will do, I will collect the data and I will calculate the average. Very simple, right? So that is descriptive. And next what you will do, I want to go for hypothesis testing. What is this hypothesis testing? After calculating the average CGPA, I want to see whether the average CGPA of St. Philomena's College student is equal to the average CGPA of Mysore University master students. Right? So I am linking what I have got from this sample to certain universe or the population. What is population? Mysore University of Mysore postgraduate students. That is the universe or the population. And St. Philomena's College students' average CGPA is my sample. St. Philomena's College student. So whether this sample average accrues to that population average, whether it is statistically similar to that population average or not. How do I check it? With the help of hypothesis testing. Okay. So this is by checking this process or with this hypothesis testing, what I am doing? I am trying to generalize my findings from the sample. Whatever I have found out from the sample, I am trying to generalize it. Why it is generalized now? Because I am relating the sample information to a given study population. Right? So I will say that okay, this sample is fitting in the population. Without hypothesis testing, I cannot make that general statement. Okay? So that is hypothesis testing. Okay? So if you are going for hypothesis testing and all, we call it as analytical research. Otherwise, it will be descriptive research. And you saw in scientific method, one of the important aspects is generalization. And how do you generalize? With the help of hypothesis testing. So one important thing that we have to keep in mind is, with hypothesis testing, you are giving a scientific dimension to your research. 100% it is scientific research. Right? There is, you have taken up, this researcher has taken up hypothesis testing and generalized their research findings. It is generalized one because you have compared the sample statistic with the population, study population. Population is about universe, right? So the sample from the population, you are trying to generalize it for a given population. So if there is similar population elsewhere, this research findings is applicable, right? So it is generalized, applicable everywhere. Thereby hypothesis testing gains lot of importance, one of the important aspects of research methodology, right? It is part, since it is part of research, it enters the methodology. So in methodology, you will make statements. What are the data analytical techniques you are using? For which hypothesis is being tested? By using which technique? Whether you are using t-test, whether using one-way ANOVA, whether you are using chi-square test, whether you are using f-test. Right? There are a lot of tests. Okay, parametric, non-parametric and all. I think tomorrow's session will throw a light on that. Okay? And based on your research process, it can be either inductive research or deductive research. What is inductive? From small observations going towards the general. So from general coming towards a micro aspect. That is deduction. Okay. So based on what your research topic or subject is, you will decide whether it is inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning process. So yeah, it is. One of the most important aspects of research is review of literature. right? We say that almost 50% of weightage of a research work is given to its reviews. So what is this review of literature? Usually if students who are not serious, if they are finding question on what is review of literature, right? They see literature and they think that it is about reading novels, stories and all, right? In research, what is this review of literature? Going through or reviewing the literature work which has already been taken up on the related topic, research topic or research problem. So if you have identified a research area and you want to formulate your research problem specifically, first thing what you will do is, even for identifying your research purpose or research problem, the first thing that you do is you go through review of literature. Literature of what has already been done in that particular area, in that particular topic. That is called as review of literature. So how does review of literature support us? It gives us an idea about the concerned theories in the related subject, concerned concepts, how concepts are defined, which are the relevant concepts. Everything we understand by reading the existing literature on that particular topic. Then you will know what are the different research works that have already happened in that area. Right? So you know about conceptual framework. What are the relevant concepts that comes in that particular topic? What are the relevant variables that can be considered in that particular research topic? And what are the basic theories, background theories which supports that research topic? All that you will understand when you go through the existing research works which have already happened. So they can be journal articles, newspaper articles, unpublished theses, or nowadays you have repository of online you will get, right, of various doctoral theses that has been awarded in different universities. Shodh Ganga, Vidyanidhi, different portals are there. So you try to information science, digital technology helps us a lot. Earlier you had to go to libraries, go through journals, volumes and find out the articles, read the index, search for bibliography and all. Nowadays it's very easy. Just you Google it, you will find so many articles, right, which are the journals and all. So you will identify the concepts, theories and what are the different areas of research that has already happened in this particular topic. So how does it help you? You will understand about methodology, you will understand about different topics, you will understand about where the data is available, data sources, right? You will get an extensive list of literature. One book if you get, one article you get, you just go to bibliography or references, you will find a whole lot of lists. So apart from this, what is it that you need to identify? You have to identify the research gap. So what is this research gap? The area which is not explored or covered by research as of now. Okay, so after that review, extensive review of literature, you will say, okay, on this area this and this work has happened, but this area is not covered. So I am doing research on that. That will be my research problem. So you are identifying the research gap. So why review of literature is so important? Because it gives rationale for your research work. You want to justify why you have taken up that research. You indicate it through your reviews. See, there is research gap. Else I have taken. That means what? You are coming out with a novel idea for your research. You are not considering as a topic which is already being discussed. If you don't go through existing literature, what happens? Might be you are repetitively taking some topic which is already discussed by some researcher long ago or even recently for that matter. So we have to be careful. So, and it gives you background knowledge of what has happened over years in that particular area in the field of research for that particular topic. So that's why review of literature is very, very important. So you will know how to write the report, what are the different techniques that can use, what can be the methodology, overall research design, everything we can get information from review of literature. You should not think that by reading the existing articles and all I am wasting time. It is very, very important. It is giving you enough flesh for your research, enough information, enough filler for your research, right? When you are writing the report, it gives support as filler also, though not the main objective of review of literature. Sometimes it helps you, right? So, how to write the research, where the data sources, where can I locate them, everything you can find it by reading the existing literature. So, reading of that existing literature is called as review. So, review, we are reviewing the literature which is already existing. So, identify. So, then you have to write up also. It's just not okay that if you mention that I have read through all these sources. You have to write a brief review. So earlier we were writing for each review one paragraph, on each literature. Okay, such and such author in his work has wrote, he has focused on objectives, this is the methodology, these were the theories focused by him. Like this you write on each reviews. But nowadays people write synthesis also. Just in one page, you summarize the whole, or mention the authors, mention some work and try to summarize what all you got from that review. What is the outcome of your review of literature? How did you identify what was the research gap, right? Briefly also they write. So if you are writing a research article, you briefly write the reviews. If it is a doctoral thesis or even for your semester projects, your master's projects and all, you can write on each literature piece, you can write a review. So books and journals, electronic databases, bibliographic databases, abstract databases, full text databases, reports of government and industry from internet, and research dissertations, theses both published and unpublished. So this is recording each literature. How do you record it? So you have a card system, you maintain small cards. But when I was doing research, I was keeping recording it in a book. Okay, if I have 20 articles, I would name them A1, A2, A3, A4 like this. And whenever I am reading something important I find, I will say A1 page number 6. This aspect I will write down. So when you are finally writing the report, you need not go back and search those. A1 immediately you pick that and you can cite it like that. Okay. So source cards, or you can just record it. And for each section, journals one section, reports one section, working papers one section, documents one section. Like that you can maintain the when you are doing reviews, you can maintain the source. So when you are finally writing your reviews, you can go for detailed writing. Why? Because you have to carefully record each and every step of your research. So each piece of literature that you are going through, you are recording it. Okay. So why I am focusing on review of literature? Because it is one of the most important fundamental aspect of research and research methodology also, right? Without review of literature, you are showing to the examiner or people who are reading your research report that you have gained this much background knowledge on your particular research area, right? So that is how you will reflect. From 1900s till 2020, I have collected, 2022, I have collected the available literature in that area. Right? So they will think, okay, researcher is up to date. Till date, what has happened in the topic, he or she knows it. Right? So it gives lot of credit and most important, background support for your research work. All the stages of report, review of your research work, the review of literature supports. Whether your guide, practical guide supports you or not, review of literature will support you. Any literature, it might tell you what can be the methodology that you will use, where is the data source. So your guide might not be supporting. review of literature will not leave you, right? I might not have supported Ashwini as a guide, but review of literature would have never left her, right? That would have acted as a guide all through the process of the research. So even at the end when you are writing report also, there is reviews to help you and guide you. So hence some focus on review of literature. So yeah, just we get through. So you can see how to write Sheikh JN, a model of industrial buying behavior, Journal of Marketing. So references, how do you cite or put your references on bibliography. So there are different styles to write it. Most popular style is APA style is followed, common and most simple also. So you write the author name, year, and the name of title of the article and the journal name, issue number, and in bracket is the volume. Volume indicates the year of publication. 37 is issue 37, volume 4, 50 to 56 is what? Page numbers. Okay. So these are the important information. This is presented this way, that way, all in different styles. So most common method is APA style, American Psychology Association. That is APA style. So coming to the overall research process, first thing is identifying and formulating your research problem. So you have to identify a research problem. What kind of research problem? Something where research gap exists, right? So how do you identify the research gap? Review. Yes, with the help of review of literature, you say this research gap is there, and in my research I am trying to fulfill that gap, and hence I am working. Usually when we write research, we usually avoid I, we and all. That personal approach is avoided when we write research report and all. Hence this topic was considered for the research. I considered, we considered. No, we cannot write like that. Okay. So first thing is we have to identify the research problem, and then defining the research problem is formulating it and stating it properly. What is your research problem? I am let us say identifying the reasons for the success of a business enterprise, or a case study on Infosys. Okay, over years like that. So you have to add in that what is it that you are focusing, what are the research objectives that you are taking up. Then review the concepts and theories, that is review of literature again. So before for identifying research problem, you go for extensive review of literature. After identifying the research problem, you go for intensive review of literature. Now you have that focused research problem. Directly what is related, you try to pick those reviews now. Okay. So you go for intensive study of existing literature which is related or much related to your research problem. Then review previous research findings. Then what happens, once you have the research gap, you formulate the research objectives and hypothesis. So objectives are, what is it that you are doing in your research, for what purpose, what is it that you are exploring in your research, what is it that you are examining, what is it that you are focusing, what is it that you want to do. Okay, those are your research objectives. So based to your research objectives, you can formulate the hypothesis. So usually nowadays what happens, once hypothesis is there, it needs to be tested with the help of relevant data analytical technique. If it cannot be tested, let us be satisfied with objectives itself. If we are not testing using the relevant data, then we can be satisfied with just having objectives only. It's not necessary that you make hypothetical statements. Once hypothetical statement is there, if you give a finding on those hypotheses, immediately an examiner will ask you, how did you make the statement or judgment about that hypothesis? which is the technique that was employed, on what data support did you test that, right? All these questions comes up. So if we are not testing, well and good, we can move ahead with objectives itself. Okay, so only if you are testing with that. For example, if I say, I will make a hypothetical statement. As and when national income increases, poverty decreases. So I cannot just say that without testing it. I cannot say that as India's national income is increasing, poverty levels are coming down. People will immediately ask me, how did you make that statement? How did you test that hypothesis? So what will I do? I collect data of national incomes over years and poverty levels over years, and might be I will run a regression and I will show that there is inverse relationship between national income and poverty. So once I show that, I can make a statement about that hypothesis. Okay, so usually you will have a null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis, and you will make decisions related to your null hypothesis. So null hypothesis will be tested, and you want to either accept it or reject it. So usually the terminology is reject the null hypothesis or do not reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so based on certain aspects, probability and all, you make decisions and then make your conclusions. So if we are not testing hypothesis with the help of data and with the help of proper techniques, we cannot have hypothesis. If we have hypothesis without all that, it's our foolishness. We are not researchers. Okay, outrightly we can say, they don't know about research process. Then research design, including the sample design. So here in the research design, you will completely write about everything about your research. Okay, what is the study area, what is the sampling design, which sampling techniques you are using, what is the sample size, if it is dependent on primary data, if it is secondary data, for what years you are collecting the data, and how you are analyzing the data, which techniques you are using, regression, correlation, t-test, chi-square, one-way ANOVA, multiple-way ANOVA, n number of tests, right? Discriminatory analysis, principal factor analysis, principal exploratory analysis. So everything we will write in that research design. How the whole blueprint of your research. Okay, the whole complete whatever you are doing in your research, you are giving there as research design. Then next step is what? You have objectives, hypothesis, research design and all. Now you are jumping into your research work. So all this is what? Preliminary work. Practically before entering your research work, you have done all these preliminary things. Next thing is what? After you have everything in your hands about methodology. So before practically jumping into your research or what you should know, you should have perfect skills and knowledge about the methodology. What is the data analysis techniques that I am using? What are those techniques? How do I interpret them? Right? Researchers should know. Nowadays, ready-made researchers are happening. Somebody will sit somewhere and will write the whole research report for you. You will give some money to them, right? And then what happens? You will submit the report to your HOD. And in the Viva, when HOD asks, what will you do? Those people won't come to help you, right? So you will be blinking your eyes and Ashwini will know how you did your research work, right? So that should not be a research work. Even if it is small time, little bit focused. Let us justify our own research work. Let us do it. It's very interesting. When you are gaining knowledge on a particular area, right? You won't get this opportunity again. If you get if somebody asks you to taking up research work, getting research projects are very difficult, right? You have to write a proposal, write about budgeting, funding, everything, and then get the approval from funding agencies and all, which is very difficult. But now you need not do all those things, right? You can take up an interesting aspect and work in your final semesters if you have project work. right? So give some time, half an hour a day is more than enough. Once you enter your fourth semester, give half an hour a day. You will come out with a beautiful project work, which is your own, right? Which is not copy pasted, which is not written by somebody else. So if it is copy pasted, it is against research ethics, right? So it is plagiarized. If you copy and if you are not acknowledging, why do you use citation and all? If you pick something, when I said recording your review of literature, why do you make a list A1, page number 9 and all? Because you want to acknowledge, you want to respect, you want to show, I have read this and I have taken this sentence from there, from that author. If you don't mention, what does it indicate? You are a thief in research, right? You are robbing somebody's work and using it as your own, which is not right, which is against the research ethics. So we have to set high ethical standards. And again, one of the important problem that comes with research report writing and all is about our language, right? We need not use Shakespearean English or some English in some best novel or something. Whatever genuinely you want to write, write it. There can be some mistakes. Nowadays when you type in computer, it will show there is some problem if you are really doing it, right? If you get it done, nobody can help you, right? So some simple English, try to just express what is it that you want to say. You read one article, what did it convey to you? Write in 3 or 4 sentences. First time it will go wrong, but second time you are doing it properly, right? So it is a learning process. That's why it is a patient and not a hurried process, right? You go very patiently and do it systematically. Okay. So then you collect the data and then you analyze the data. Test hypothesis, if any hypothesis is there. That's what I said. If you have hypothesis, it has to be tested. Okay, so you analyze the data and based on the results of your data analytical technique, let us say t-test or one-way ANOVA, two-way ANOVA, multiple-way ANOVA, chi-square test, either you reject the null hypothesis or do not reject the hypothesis. Based on that result of rejecting or not rejecting your null hypothesis, you will write the inferences for your research topic. Okay, because that hypothesis is related to your research topic, right? So inference is the last stage. You interpret the results, you are linking it to your research topic and then writing the conclusion. So where does your conclusion or findings come from? From the results of the data analytical technique. Okay, and then you interpret. After data analysis technique, everything is done. Last stage is what? You start writing the research report. Okay, everything you go on writing systematically. So there is format, introductory aspects, introduction and review of literature, research gap, objectives and hypothesis, and then the methodology, then the scope of your research, right? And then the discussion. What data you have collected and what were the techniques employed, what were the results and what were your findings, conclusions, and then the summary, findings and all. Your research report is done. So saying is easy, the whole process is cumbersome. Right? So this is very, very important. When we go for hypothesis testing and all, earlier we used to have this distinction between, what is this? So usually there was this qualitative research and quantitative research. On what basis do we have this classification? Any idea? What is qualitative research and quantitative research? Quantitative is? It can be measured. So when you have research variables which are directly measurable in numbers, right? So for example, I gave the example poverty, national income and all. Is it qualitative or quantitative research? Quantitative research. Now what I will do, I will go to poor people and collect information from them, their name, age, gender, and about their attitude, about their motivations in getting financing, whether they are ready to take up loans, whether ready to take up new economic activities, whether they are ready to take up jobs also. Sometimes poverty might be self-imposed also, right? So I am trying to see the behavioral aspects. So when I go and try to collect this kind of data, what data do I have? Qualitative, right? They will say, no, I am not interested. I am not ready to go to Bangalore to take up that job. This job I am not ready to do, right? So all this is qualitative data. So usually what happens, sometimes I might be using both qualitative data and also quantitative data. So in that case we call it as mixed research methods. You use both the qualitative research techniques and quantitative research techniques. So earlier there was not much techniques available to analyze the qualitative data. So qualitative data are what? Categorical data, right? For example, the gender of students, female or male. So it is what? Qualitative, right? So what I will do to bring in this information for my analysis, in my research analysis, what I will do, I will code these qualitative variables, categorical variables. So for females I put 0, for males I put 1. That doesn't mean that females are zeros, right? It is just nominal, we are indicating. There is a purpose why we give 0, right? Because of gender discrimination. Every time base category is given 0, that is the purpose behind. So we believe that females are discriminated, right, by us. So base category, hence the 0 is given to female, not by values. It doesn't mean that boys are 1 and girls are zeros. It doesn't mean like that. So yes or no. For yes I will give 1. For no I will give 0. So ranking of my class. So Dr. Ashwini will ask you, how do you rate the class of Dr. Navita? So she will give 0 to 10. So whoever is listening attentively might be, they will rate me above 6. And whoever is in his own word, in his or her own word, they will give 0 because they haven't understood. Whatever the assessment, okay. So this is called as ordinal data, ranking, preferences, okay. So earlier we used to call all this qualitative research, and in qualitative research there was scope for subjective opinions and all, subjective statements, right? But nowadays we bring all these data into the scope of data analysis, okay. You can run logistic regressions. Ordinal data. For example, I think Dr. Ashwini did that. Consumer satisfaction is based on price, ambience of the superstore, right? Quality of the commodities, availability of different categories of goods. All these are what? Except price, all others are qualitative variables, right? Customer satisfaction is a dependent variable. So what did she do? She did not think that I cannot use anything. She ran a logistic regression for this qualitative data. She used chi-square test to see whether those two variables are associated or not. Whether customer satisfaction is related to ambience of the superstore, supermarket or not. So outside it looks very difficult. How can we analyze? How can I make a null hypothesis? There is no association between consumer satisfaction and ambience in the supermarket. But we can link it and we can test that hypothesis also. She used chi-square test, which is a non-parametric test. So rating of consumer satisfaction 1 to 5 and then ambience of the store 1 to 5, and we will check statistically whether there is relationship or not. Right. So same way, any qualitative variable, any opinion of people, behavior of people, whatever qualitative information you have taken, you can use it for data analysis. Statistically, we can give results. It doesn't mean that subjective opinion, qualitative research can be based on subjective opinion. There also we can use scientific methods and draw our inferences or conclusions which are very, very scientific. right? And usually I take a practical example while explaining to my students that understanding of research methodology class is based on gender of the students. What does it mean? That is the understanding of what we discuss on in research methodology class is different for boy students and different for girl students. Their understanding is based on gender. That is the proposition I have. So what I will do, can I test this hypothesis? Very well, I can test. Okay, I will collect the whether the student is male or female, and I will ask whether you have understood the class, yes or no. Right? And then I will link it, do chi-square test, and I will see that there is no association between gender and learning. Right? So luckily, might be otherwise I would be interested. Girls are understanding it better than boys. Positive bias. Okay. So this is about qualitative and quantitative research and all. Coming to determining sample sizes. So this is about, since this is very, very important. Many times when what is the sample size? So from whole of your study population. So what is population? Can anyone answer? What is population? Universe. So universe is what? Which includes everything. So a population in research methodology or statistics parlance, it means that the complete information about a given variable is its universe or population. It's not just numbers. Okay. So if we have, if a researcher has a particular variable, let us say I am taking up a study on master students of Mysore University, right? So what will be the universe? All the students who are pursuing master degrees under the purview of University of Mysore, whether in autonomous colleges or directly in university satellite centers or in Gangotri, anywhere, all of this forms the population or universe for my research study. So it's a complete information about a considered variable. It's not just number of students, right? It is just one part of that universe. So a census survey is one where I complete enumeration of all the units in the population. So I collect all the information from all the units in the population. That is called as census, right? That's why India goes to census every 10 years. Now because of COVID, we don't have yet taken up 2021's census. So why every 10 years? Because it involves huge resources, right? Collecting so much information from each and every citizen of this country who is located even in the remotest part. So the census survey is very, very difficult. So what do we do? From the population, we pick certain sampling units and then take up a sample survey. And what do I want to do? From that sample, I want to understand about the given population. Through sample, I want to know about the population. So what do? I collect the sample information and then try to link it to the population through hypothesis testing. Okay. Thereby, you are from sample, I am generalizing my result for the whole population. That is the meaning. Okay. Or in other words, whether the given sample belongs to that particular population or not. Might be your average CGPAs are better than Mysore University students, St. Philomena's master students. What does it mean? That means you stand out as a different population. You don't belong to that particular population which has an average CGPA of 8. Here average is 8.59, like that. Just to boost you people, right? It can be other way also. Right? So that is what, how do I generalize like this? How do I link sample information to population with the help of hypothesis testing? Okay. And if you are understanding causal relationship between variables, you hypothesize that there is no relationship between customer satisfaction and ambience of the supermarket. right? So you run a regression and you will see that there is relationship, right? So you reject the null hypothesis. So when we are going for primary data especially, we have to determine the sample size. So this is for proportions. So for example, COVID-19 pandemic, population who is vaccinated and who is not vaccinated, and I am studying their health status. Okay, so there is proportion. Some portion of the population is not vaccinated and some of it is vaccinated. So I will tell you, when the study population is in the form of a proportion, the sample size formula is given like this. N is equal to z square p into q divided by e square. So now this z square is what? A statistic of a normal population, normal distribution, standardized normal distribution. We call it as standardized normal distribution. I don't know, tomorrow before taking up hypothesis data analytical techniques, you should learn about normal distribution. Okay, so you can ask the resource person to brief about the normal distribution. With the help of that normal distribution only, you will understand whether you have to accept the null hypothesis or reject the null hypothesis. Or if we have time, might be briefly I will explain that now. Okay, so this is that z square. P is let us say a proportion of population which is vaccinated. Q is remaining who are not vaccinated. Okay, so if 75% are vaccinated, Q will be 25. Okay, 0.75 will be P, 0.25 will be Q, like that. Okay, E square is the error, like 0.05, 0.01, like this. Okay, so what is the error component? Type 1 error. We call it as type 1 error. Error of rejecting a true null hypothesis. So that type 1 error component, how much is it that I am reading in my hypothesis testing process? So let us say usually it is 0.05 error, which gives us 95% confidence in our hypothesis testing process. So that is for infinite population when we don't know about the population number. Second formula is when I know the population number. Capital N is total population, available population from which I am taking the sample, and small n will be the sample size. Okay. The next one, if I am testing going for average. So if I am going for averages, for example, I told you mean of the average CGPA of St. Philomena's master students. So in that case, sample size formula, if I am going for averages, calculating averages from the sample, it will be S square into Z square divided by E square. Now S square is what? The standard deviation in the population. Since we know the number, that standard deviation. And when the that is for infinite population now. So many a times, since doing research, we deal with averages, right? A t-test. I test whether the sample average is equal to population average. Average of the St. Philomena's master students, whether it is equal to the average of Mysore University postgraduate students. Okay. So in that case, if I am dealing with averages, I use this formula. So N is infinite population. I don't know about the population numbers. Okay, first one, the first formula. Second one, when I know the numbers. So now if I get the data of N, capital N, how many master students are there in Mysore University this year, I put that N there, and then the standard deviation for that N, sigma square P, which is mentioned as S in the first formula. So and then I will calculate the sample size. Okay, and that number of students I will take as the sample. So what is sampling? Selecting the units for our sample from the population, from the study population. So drawing or selecting. Drawing is picking, not drawing. Picking the sampling units from the given study population or the sample framework. So sample framework, I will list out the students. Let us say 5 to 10 departments in university I will list out, and then the PG students here in St. Philomena's. So that will be my sample framework. So from that, how do I draw the sampling units? So that is the sampling process. So usually most popular method of drawing there are sampling techniques also, another important aspect of research methodology. So probability sampling techniques and non-probability sampling techniques. So probability sampling technique is what each unit in the study population is given equal chance or opportunity to enter the sample. Okay. For example, in this group, I will pick 5 students as my sample. So how many are there? Here now, average 50. 50, okay. So if I am picking one student, all the 50 have equal chance or equal probability of entering into my sample. What is that equal probability? 1 by 50. Each one has that probability, right? Out of 50, there is a chance for each one of you, okay. So whenever I pick one, again I put it back. That is called as what? Random sampling technique, simple random sampling technique. So again, each one will have the, if for example I take one check, I will give numbers for all of you 1 to 50, I will pick 10, okay, and then I will keep aside. Then when I am drawing second check, what is the probability for 49? 1 out of 49. Then it is not random sample technique. Each one should have you 1 out of 50 only. So I will pick and again replace it into the lot. So that every time I am picking, each one has the probability of 1 out of 50. So to that extent, we think about systematically drawing the samples randomly, right? So if I am going for a village survey, right, I have to randomly pick the households. But I am quite lazy. Ashwini knows. What I will do, I will sit in the bus stop of that village. Instead of entering village and randomly picking the households, whoever is coming to that bus stop from that village, I am taking the information. So is that randomly drawn? No, it is to my convenience. So it is convenient sampling. Whoever has travelled in that village, whoever has come from that village to that bus stop that day, were my sample, not all the households in the village. So like this, we have to give a lot of importance to minute things also when we are drawing samples randomly, because we believe that when samples are drawn randomly, the sampling error will be very, very less. Okay, and as the sample size increases, sampling error becomes lesser and lesser. Thereby, we try to go for a larger sample size. So this is about sampling, and briefly about sampling techniques also. Non-probability is where it is difficult to go for probability sampling techniques, and researcher uses his or her own idea in getting the sampling units. So we don't know where the study population units are located at all. So whomever I get, I will try to get them. Best example is when you about child labor, right? You will see a small kid working in a small restaurant. If you ask their age, immediately they will say 18, 16, because they know if they find out it is below 40, some problem will arise, and that's why safely they will say. But they will be young kids only. So it's difficult to locate. Even if you ask any information, very hard. You won't get any information from them. So in this case, what you do, wherever you get the information, conveniently you collect the information. Hard to go for random sampling technique. So those sampling techniques are non-probability sampling techniques, which can be convenient to the researcher as per the judgment of the researcher. Units might have been allocated. Okay. So any questions from your side?
Any doubts regarding this till now?
I know methodology classes will be usually very boring. So hypothesis, as I told you, a preposition about the given variables. So only if we are testing based on the data should we go for hypothetical statements in our research. Otherwise, let's be just satisfied with the research objectives, and based on the descriptive analysis, we can make conclusions. Right? We cannot say findings or statements or inferences being drawn. It is just the conclusion. You are summarizing whatever you have observed. So when we come to hypothesis, usually when we want to, when we have hypothesis, so usually when we go for hypothesis, as I told you, usually we test the null hypothesis. Okay. So null hypothesis, and opposed to that we have alternate hypothesis. Okay. So what is this null hypothesis? For the example which I am taking repeatedly, let us say the average CGPA of master students of St. Philomena's is X bar. Okay, average. And then the Mysore University students average CGPA population is mu. Okay. So in null hypothesis, I will say that there is no difference. Right? That is, you are nullifying the differences. That's why the null hypothesis. Okay. So and in alternate, you will say it's not equal to mu. Or in other words, I can say that X bar is greater than mu. Average CGPA of you people is greater than the average CGPA of Mysore University students. Or other case also. Less than mu also. Okay. So in this case, when I say it is not equal to, it is either greater than or lesser than. So in this case, the hypothesis testing is two-tailed test. Right? So there will be a distribution. So I told you about normal distribution. Right? Which is symmetrical, bell-shaped, medium height. Right? And if you draw a line from the center, each part is divided into two equal parts. And it will never touch the x-axis. It is continuous. For a continuous random variable. So what is a random variable? A random variable is a variable whose value is determined by chance or as the outcome of a random experiment. Okay. For example, if I am taking sample of few of you and asking your CGPA, until I pick the sampling units and come and ask you, do I know about CGPA? Right? So I can choose any student. Right? It is not predetermined. Only when I come and ask you, do I know? So from 5 students, it is 7.5, 9.3, like this, 9.5. Right? Like this it goes. So what is this variable known as? It is a random variable. Right? The value of this variable is determined by chance. Why by chance? Because the CGPA of the student who I am picking, only they are giving me the values. Can I predetermine the value? No. Only when I come and ask do I know. Or let us say tossing of coin. Everyone watches cricket match. Right? First thing we want to know whether India is batting or bowling. Right? Which captain has won the toss. So what is this tossing of coin? Again it is a random variable. So outcome is determined only after tossing that coin. And when it falls on the ground, the coin, whether you know it is tails or heads. So that such variable is random variable, and this can be discrete or continuous random variable. So continuous random variable, the value is determined between range given interval. Discrete is particular value. It takes a particular, for example, age of student or CGPA of a student. It is a discrete value specific. Okay. So now how do I go for this hypothesis testing? X bar is not equal to mu or X bar is equal to mu, null hypothesis which I want to test. Okay. So when I want to test this hypothesis, I will collect the data, I will estimate X bar, and I will use something called as t-test. Okay. X bar minus mu sigma by root n. Okay. How do I know that I have to use this t-test and whether I have to accept or reject this null hypothesis? Based on the standardized normal distribution. Okay. So only the important features I will tell. So mu plus or minus sigma, 1 sigma, 2 2 sigma, 3 sigma. It goes like this. Here minus 1 sigma, minus 2 sigma, minus 3 sigma. Now what is the sigma? Standard deviation, positive square root of the variance. Hope you all have learned some statistics, right? So the distribution is expressed in terms of plus 1 sigma, plus 2 sigma, and it is symmetrical. Minus 1 sigma, minus 2 sigma. So the characteristic feature of this normal distribution is mu plus or minus sigma. That is plus 1 sigma and mu minus 1 sigma. This area covers 68% of the area under the curve, right? Or in other words, it means that the probability that a random variable x will lie between this range is 0.68 or 68%. So mu plus or minus 2 sigma. It covers how much? Mu plus or minus 2 sigma. 95% of the area under the curve. Okay, so 95% of the area under the curve, or in other words, the probability that a random variable will fall between this interval is 0.95. So when you are calculating x bar, you are hypothesizing that the population average also is lying in this interval, and your sample also is lying in this interval, right? Sample is belonging to that particular sample, and thereby you are conducting this hypothesis testing. Okay, so you use the t-test because for the average normal variable is distributed with mean mu and variance will be sigma square by n. So thereby this transformation x bar t is equal to x bar minus mu sigma by 10. Okay, so if the probability is greater, remaining is how much? If this covers the 95%, mu plus or minus sigma, remaining is how much? 0.05%. So if the probability is less than 0.05%, we say that that statistic is lying in the rejection region, right? So this one is acceptance region. Okay, so based on the probability. Okay, or here you will identify the critical value. So there in the sample size determination I said z square. So z value for 95% is how much? 1.96 minus 1.96. Okay, so if your statistic value is greater than 1.96, you are rejected. This is the statistic value what you estimate. If it is greater than 1.96, you will reject the null hypothesis. If it is less than 1.96, you are accepting the null hypothesis. So the decision making rules for parametric test comes from this normal distribution. Why parametric test I am saying? Because in parametric test we assume that the sample in its population follows normal distribution. Okay, with that assumption, or we can practically test whether the given sample follows normal distribution or not. There are tests, Jacobera tests and KMB test and all. Okay, based on that, if it is normal, we can go for parametric testing. Okay. Then after everything is done, so if I reject this null hypothesis, what I will say, if it is x bar is greater than mu, I will say that average CGPA of said PHILOMENA students are much higher than the Mysore University PG students. That is my inference, which is related to my research area. Decision is either you are accepting or rejecting the null hypothesis. Okay. After all this is done, the final step is you will go on writing the research report. Okay. So, any doubts you can just ask. So anything you want to ask? told you fundamental research, applied research, descriptive research, analytical research, if you are going for hypothesis testing, right? And then historical research, action research, before and after, right? So after this special series, what is before, what was your level of understanding on research methodology and data analysis? After this series, what is your understanding? So that is action research, before and after. How has the intervention helped you, right? So then evaluation research, what is the outcome of this special series, right? We can take up a evaluative research on that. Concurrent evaluation. After every session, they will evaluate you. That is concurrent evaluation. Or I'll keep asking questions. By your answers, I can understand how much you have understood, right? That is also concurrent evaluation. Or they can be continuous evaluation, post-project evaluation. Diagnostic research, trying to diagnose a given problem. Applied research, trying to find solutions for a problem. So there are various research methods. There is qualitative research, quantitative research. Nowadays, as I told you, both qualitative data and quantitative data, they are available for our research analysis. You can take up data analysis, whether it is qualitative or quantitative research. Right? So any doubts? No doubts. So no doubt means either you have understood or understood. Nothing was understood. Null hypothesis. So what should we reject it or accept it? Accept is nothing was understood because it's null hypothesis, right? We have to reject it. Okay, thank you for your patience. There was a question. Yeah. If it is not normally distributed, there are non-parametric tests.
According to settlement theorem, can we assume it to be normally distributed and increase as magnitude?
See, that's what we go with the assumption, but there is there is scope for us to test whether the given sample follows normal distribution or not. As I told you, Jackie-Barra test and all is there, and KMG test and all. So that you can run, and safely you can use parametric test. Or if using non-parametric test is nothing wrong, right? Only because my sample is not following normal distribution. For each parametric test, there is an equivalent of non-parametric test that is available, right? So we need not worry. If one-way ANOVA is there in parametric, there is Whitney test, right, in non-parametric test. So we can use non-parametric. It's not a problem. Why to use? Just go with the assumption. That will reflect that you are a more serious researcher if you are gone for normality testing, right?
Thank you. Area of the study, whether it is the subject or area covered.
Area of the study, when you want to identify the research problem, when we say area of the study, it is topic. When we discuss it under scope of our research, area of the study will be study area. Under scope of the research. Okay, after methodology you mention the scope. Okay, usually we confuse scope with importance of research. So when you write about, when you introduce your research topic, you write about its importance and all. So scope is what? Scope is not importance. After methodology, if you are taking up time series data, you will mention. You have collected national income data from 1947 to 2020, right? Or you are collecting the primary data from Mysore district or in Mysore taluk. That is study area. You can call it a study area. That will be explained under scope of the study. So let us not get confused. Again, under scope, some of them write about importance of the topic, research problem, which is not necessary. Once you write about methodology, in the next, when the scope follows, it is about the coverage. The scope is about coverage of your research. At what time you are collecting your primary data, which month you have collected your primary data, which date, which year, like that. or secondary data from which year, in which month, like that. Okay, that is coverage of your research work will be the scope there. Okay. Because after writing the importance, again there is no need to bring it in scope also, right? And when we talk about research report, we should avoid repetitions, right? You need not repetitively mention the same thing. You can say as mentioned in chapter 2 under that topic. Again, you need not write all that. We should avoid repetitions. We should avoid imitations. We should avoid copy paste, right? So we have to be very, very alert. So it is a very patience process with lot of patience. We need, as researchers, we need lot of patience. And some important aspects I have tried to cover. No doubt not complete research methodology as such, as a review of literature, sampling, and those things. Hope it is given.
After the normality test, if you do that data is a
No.
non-parametric,
Ah.
so is it I have to use only non-parametric test, or else can I use parametric also?
Once you get the result that it is not normal, it doesn't follow normal distribution, then you should go for non-parametric only. Parametric tests are typically for sample whose population follows normal distribution only. Because we are using that normal distribution, right? You are fitting the sample statistic there only in that distribution. So there is no scope now. That distribution is not applying for our sample. So I should move with non-parametric tests. And it's nothing wrong. We should not think that not using parametric tests, somewhere I have gone wrong and all. If you want to use parametric test itself, might be sometimes you can use increase the sample size and then again run the test. Because as n increases indefinitely, all the samples follow normal distribution. So usually I say normal distribution is a mother distribution. All the kids as they grow elder, n as n increases, they approach normal distribution only. So you can increase the sample size and see whether it follows normal distribution, and you can use parametric tests only if you have enough time. If you don't have enough time, go for non-parametric tests and then complete your research work. Thank you.
A pleasant afternoon to you all. It is my privilege to deliver a big thank you, firstly to God for keeping us safe all this while, for giving us such a beautiful day, to even witness this day, this special day wherein which we had Dr. Navita to address all of us on this major topic, business research methodology. So I, on behalf of the college and the entire fraternity, render a big sense of gratitude to you, ma'am. Thank you for coming here all the way, taking this, prioritizing this as your important day for today. Keeping that in mind, I would also like to thank you for this beautiful, wonderful, informative, interesting, knowledgeable lecture on this vast topic, business research methodology. I'm sure we all have gained great insights on developing research skills, as you've also brushed us up on all of it in detail so wonderfully by quoting such real-time examples, such interesting examples, and also motivating all of us to be great researchers, a little different from Galileo and Newton so far in future. So, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for taking this time. Thank you for answering all our doubts so wonderfully well. So, keeping that in mind, I would also like to thank all of you for giving your time. I'm sure you gained a lot of knowledge in this session. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, one and all. Have a great day.
So I was just mentioning about Dr. Ashwini because of some examples. Dr. Nandish also is my research student. Both of them got their doctorate degrees under my guidance. So I always holding the PG Department of Economics in St. Philomena's. Thank you.